Hi, I'm Thomas Veep. I'm creative director at Frictional Games, and you're listening to the Party Chat podcast.
Xbox on.
Game on, baby! Wow!
Don't make a girl a promise you can't keep.
Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Xbox One Party Chat podcast. It's the official podcast of the Xbox One subreddit. I'm this week's host, Delicious Cheese. I'm joined by the one and only Carina. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Rhys?
I am fantastic. And unfortunately, well, I don't know about unfortunately, because that implies that this is somehow bad, but we are not joined by anyone else. It's just the two of us. Ross is stuck at work, and who knows where Clay is. so it's just us, at least to begin with. So how have you been, Carina? I skipped a week because I had surgery to have my teeth pulled out, and that's not really, conductive to podcasting. So how you been?
I've been great. Yeah, I'd rather not have teeth being took out. I think that's probably one of the things I definitely don't want ever. Hopefully,
One of those things you have nightmares about.
That and needles. Like, nah.
So did you know that little gaming fact? I'm going to throw this in for anyone listening. The classic Silent Hill. It had a really, really intense and awful, like not amazing, but awful when you're playing the game soundtrack. Just absolutely freaked you out. And one of the quote unquote instruments was a highly distorted dentist's drill.
Really?
Yeah, so they used the dentist drill as part of the music to really make you unsettled, as well as other things.
That's actually pretty cool. No,
Yeah, I have no
obviously
idea
not with the drill,
why
but
I
I
know
mean,
that.
the fact that they've done it.
I probably heard that on one of those Did You Know Gaming YouTube videos. That would probably be where it came from. I have no idea where or why I know that, but I know that. Anyway, let's move away from my tangent, and I guess we should talk about what we've been playing. What have you been playing? Before we start though, this is PUBG launch week, although we are recording before PUBG. In fact, this is PUBG Eve. PUBG.
Yeah. PUBG.
It's PUBG. It's basically going to be a subreddit national holiday tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to that. We'll probably talk about PUBG next week, I guess, when we've all had our fill of it. But what have you been playing in the meantime?
Oh, what are we doing? Oh, yeah. So the new expansion was released for Destiny 2. I think me and Ross spoke around about it a lot last week. But yeah, no, I've been doing a lot of that. Just doing some raids, getting my level cap up. It's okay. It's nice, but I mean, I don't feel like it's a full expansion, but who knows? Yeah. I do know by the time this gets released, they would have done a big update. At the moment, everyone's playing laser tag with the new Prometheus lens.
That is so funny. Even like, I don't play the game, but even I knew about that.
Exactly.
Basically, for those who's listening, they released this weapon. It's like a laser. Pew!
Pew, pew.
It literally goes pew pew, and it's incredibly overpowered, like ridiculous. Like I watched a video of one guy effortlessly going like 26-0 in PvP, and Bungie took a look at it and was like, "Yeah, this is broken." And instead of fixing it, they made it available for sale.
I love that they did that.
The merchant.
I love it.
And they were just like, like,
if it's broken, why fix it? Just give it everyone.
Burn the whole thing down. Like, let's, this is going to be interesting. I'm going to add someone to the call. We're doing it live.
Ooh.
Are you ready? New phone, who dis?
Now, what's going on, everybody? Are you guys still recording? Really recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
We're doing it live.
Am I really late? I'm not late. I'm actually like 10 minutes early.
The question is though, are you late or are we just early?
I did get an update from Ross as to why he's not on. Anybody that follows him on social media will know that over the weekend,
he was
testing out Taco Bell in Europe.
For the first
and
time.
Apparently it's just like did not sit well, and I'm thinking he's just on the toilet, you know.
He's got the Taco Bell runs.
That's
The
right.
Taco Bell
That's right. He's got to run for the border. So
Oh dear. to Britain?
what? Yeah. I don't know. We're all going to be running
Wait.
for the border here stateside
Just-
pretty soon.
Clayton, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome back.
What have you been playing this week?
Oh, what have I been playing? Do you want to take a guess what I've been playing?
Does it start with and end with Rainbow Six Siege?
I have gone from, all right, I'm not going to play this. I'm going to finish playing Quantum Break. I'm going to finish playing Gears of War. I'm going to play a whole bunch of single player campaigns. I just got Witcher 3. I'm going to start playing that too. I'm playing nothing but exclusively Rainbow Six Siege. Like just
Wow.
absolutely nothing but Rainbow Six Siege.
We were just mentioning this podcast is going out obviously later in the week, but it's PUBG Eve. It's the eve
I
of
know.
PUBG.
I know.
So, do you think that's going to be the game that pulls you away from the R6?
I think it might be, and what I'm actually very excited about is there's a group of guys that I used to game with like every night, and during the Battlefield days, my heavy duty battlefield days of 3 and 4. Not so much Battlefield 1. I just couldn't get into it. But, yeah, they're all picking it up, and we are all up pretty late, stateside. So we'll be, I'm assuming, playing that with these guys. What I don't know is you know what? I haven't watched a ton of streams on the game yet. And, I mean, on the PC side, sure. I'm just wondering, like, how are all the how do the controls transfer?
Oh, you haven't seen?
Over? I saw
okay.
I saw Larry posted some screenshots, but I
Yeah,
still
yeah,
wasn't, it just, like, the inventory management system just seems like it'd be so much easier on a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, it is. Basically,
Yeah.
Someone, I know that Larry made a post and someone else made another post as well, basically just going over the controls, and it's different to other, like they didn't just try and ram the standard FPS control scheme into the game. They actually thought about it for a bit. Like, for example, the game's, third person. So when you hold the left trigger, you tighten up your aim and you sort of aim a little bit down the scope. Kind of like, when you hold the left trigger in Gears of War, right?
Right.
But if you tap the trigger, then you stand still and you actually like aim down the sights in first person, or you lift the rifle scope to your eye and you look down the rifle scope in first person. And then your controls completely change when you're in like this aiming mode. And then you can do things like control your breath. You can change the zoom and you can change the fire rate and stuff like that. So they've thought about this because, it's based on Arma, and Arma is a hardcore military simulation. It's not an arcade game
Shooter.
So it's quite complicated, but I think inventory management is always going to be a bit clunky. The only thing that's good is that everyone is on the same level of clunk, but as soon as we start cross-playing with PC, ooh.
Are they really going to do that though?
I think
Crossplay with PC? It just seems like you'd get slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered.
Just
you know what's funny is I was thinking about it today I was like, is this the Elite Dangerous of console first-person shooters? Where
It is
going to be like
in a way.
a huge learning curve initially, but once you get into it, it's going to be really good for you once you've mastered everything.
I believe one of the other moderators actually asked just last night, who's played this game on PC? Like, I need some tips. How do I play this game? And I said, I haven't played it yet, but my assumption is going to be shoot the other guys first. and then he a few minutes later, he started laughing in the chat saying that he just found this guide from like GameSpot or something, like some proper big, not IGN, but one of the other bigger, I think it was GameSpot. Anyway, and he's like, this is legit the first thing that it says on their thing, shoot the other guys first.
What, you're the
Pro
teammates?
No, like the other people. Well, see, if you play free-for-all, you have no teammates.
Ah, good point.
It's just
But couldn't you
versus
still,
99 other
if you had even if it was free for all, I mean, you can still go in with a group of your buds, right, and try and find them.
You can even in a free-for-all game, you can pair up, or you can go in a group of 3 or 4 as well. But when there's 2 of you or 4 of you left, that counts as a win. I actually kind of disappointed. I was kind of hoping that like just that there's 4 of you and then you kill the last guy and then like you get a countdown like and then you have to kill each other. Like you have to turn on your friends.
That I think would be great. I think that would be great. Did they mention if the new map's coming out on the console side as well, or is that just on the PC?
Early next year. It's still
early next year.
Yeah, it's still only on the testing servers on the PC.
Yeah.
But that reminds me, did you guys ever play I can't remember, it was one of the Splinter Cell games on the 360, but it had a co-op campaign that you could play in split screen.
Yes.
Or multiplayer.
I think that was the one that you could play multiplayer online, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's spoilers for an old game, but I can't even remember which one it was. But it had such a good twist at the end because you play through the whole game together. And, you know, it's really co-op focused and you do all these co-op moves and you become good buddies and the guys, it has its own story too. It's not just like rammed in. The guys, you know, become friends and stuff and they go through the whole story. And then after you actually beat the game and you defeat the last boss or whatever it was, there's one last chapter and you get a phone call. One of you gets a phone call from his boss telling you to kill the other guy. And that's the end of the game. The 2 of you suddenly have this death match. And, you know, you've gone together through the whole game as friends. And then all of a sudden it's like, where are you? Come out. It's like, no, why don't you come over here? And like, it was so cool. You have to kill each other. It doesn't matter which one wins. That's just, you get one of 2 endings.
Those were some of the best games, man.
It's cool.
Those multiplayer.
Cool idea.
Those was like the spy versus mercenary setup that they had in those games were so intense. And I can remember being so stressed out playing those multiplayer games. And if you were the spy, you could like completely disappear into the darkness of a room. It's like just going
like
to a
ninja
corner
dudes from this roof and stuff like
exactly.
Batman.
Yeah. Knock people out. Yeah. Wasn't it like you can only knock them out? You couldn't kill them so that they could, I don't know, they could like wake back up or I can't remember.
If you only knocked them out, yeah. And the people who were playing the people who were the spies, they were in third person, like normal. And the guys who were the mercenaries were in first person, like a normal first person shooter. So they had a smaller view. And I can remember like running along with my friend and then like just suddenly like turning around and he wasn't there anymore. And I was like, oh God. Memories. But anyway.
So are you guys pretty excited though? You guys are all getting, you're both getting it, right?
I mean, I want to, maybe.
Well,
I mean, money.
Yeah.
That's the issue right now. It's for Christmas.
Yeah, I'm the same. I might get it at the end of the month. Hopefully.
We'll try. We have to do the multi-streaming of it, obviously, before everyone gets bored.
That's true.
And move on from it.
Yeah, exactly. Xbox gamers.
Ooh, do you know what I just ordered as well that I probably don't necessarily need because I have a Kinect still, but it's just so clunky to use? I just ordered there was a big Logitech webcam sale on Amazon this week, and everything. I think all their cams were half off, so I got it's like one that's really popular with streamers for.
I've got one.
$40 maybe. It's normally like $100, nice. I think.
I use my laptop.
Yeah, I can't, for whatever reason, if I try and stream anything from my Mac, it hates it. Absolutely hates it. And I have a feeling it's my FaceTime camera. I'm thinking it's the FaceTime camera. So I'm going to test this out with this camera. But I figured if anything, I'll now have 2 camera setups because I've got 2 Xboxes now, one for the living room and one for my gaming area. That I'll be able to have cameras set up. So if I want to stream on Mixer, that they're going to add overlays for us because we've asked for that. And I keep asking for that.
Josh, get on
that. Dear Watch Mixer team, please add overlays on the Xbox.
It'd be so much easier.
Just say my gamer tag. Just say my gamer tag. Like, and I could say top or bottom. That's it. That's all. Like,
do you not know who we are? We interviewed
We're the
Josh Stein
peons.
before he was famous.
Yeah, before he got wicked famous over on the
Mad
internet.
famous AF.
Doing Xbox unboxing videos for controllers and doing that magical spin that he does. Have you guys seen that with his unboxing?
Oh, I think I've seen one of them.
Oh, good Lord.
Speaking of Mr. Steen and unboxings, how about that new
Stein.
controller?
What? I had like two things at once, and I didn't get any of that.
I did it again. Yeah, Stein and the new Sea of Thieves.
Oh, I really want that controller.
That is the coolest looking controller
I want
I
it
have
so badly.
ever seen.
Oh, I really want it. No, but it's like going to be
Glows in the
£65.
dark.
And I really want it, and I really want to take dance classes, but I really want the D controller, and it's like,
wait,
Transparent and everything.
Did you just say I want to take dance classes?
Yeah, no, basically I used to dance and I want to go back into it, but they cost, but then controller. So which one?
Oh, okay. I was quite confused. I was like, wait, what?
Something that's not video games?
Oh my god. Socialing? What is that? I know, apparently we don't do that. But no, I really like the compass, you know, on the thumbstick? I really like that.
I like how it has a gold tooth. One of the triggers is gold.
Oh yeah. And the glow in the dark.
Yeah, oh, it's badass.
I really want it, but
maybe if you ask Emma real nice. You know, all this Sea of Thieves talk, you know, would be interesting if we had a release date for the game, wouldn't it? Oh wait, look over there. A release date. Oh, that was nice. Oh, I'm a
finally
genius. Coming
Very
out
convenient.
20th of March 2018, and anyone who's interested in sweet, juicy details that no one else has had best listen to the podcast next week. This is not a subtle hint. Tune in next week.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. And just to swing right on back, I have been playing The Evil Within 2.
What?
Almost exclusively.
And
it looks good.
I know you.
I have never seen exploding brains in 4K look so good.
That is a good point.
Dim brains.
It's a very, very good Japanese horror game. It has a lot of the annoying sort of stereotypes, tropes, I guess, of JRPGs or Japanese games design in general. You know, lots of button mashing and stuff like that. But it also sort of has sidestepped a lot of the problems that a lot of the horror games have. I mean, the controls aren't as bad as they normally are. Inventory management is actually pretty simple. And it's pretty good. I mean, the story's not that interesting. You're looking for your daughter and the main character just says, "What the hell is that? What the?" over and over. Someone should make like a super cut. Maybe I will. Of like every time he says, "What the hell?" in the game. But yeah, I mean, it's very scary. Really good atmosphere. And it's good. I'm enjoying it a lot. So that's what I've been playing. Now let's attempt to restore some structure and find out what's been happening on the subreddit this week.
You're listening to Xbox One Party Chat Podcast. This week in the subreddit.
So, first things first, the Game Awards happened. The official Game Awards. And it was surprisingly not that cringe.
Oh yeah, I quite like it.
I mean, it was a bit cringe. It's always cringe.
Awards will always be cringe.
But it wasn't as cringe as last year. There was no chic Hydrobot.
I fell asleep, woke up to, now I can't pronounce his name, so the Nintendo guy, racking around a Master Sword. Then I fell back asleep, woke back up to the Bethesda woman on a seat, thinking, oh, is this a new game? Turns out it wasn't a new game. I got disappointed and then went back to bed.
Well, I waited till the next morning so I could actually pay attention.
Yeah, I did.
The worst part was every now and again being like, so, let me tell you all about eBay. But, they got to pay the bills. It was pretty cool. There was a lot of debuts. We got a new Metro Exodus trailer. We got the release date for Sea of Thieves. There was confirmed chickens in the game.
Yes, I hope we see more of the chicken.
I'm sure we will.
I enjoy the chicken.
New Soul Calibur. Either of you guys played the Soul Calibur series? Isn't it Soul Edge elsewhere? Is it Soul Edge in the US or the UK?
We call it Soul Calibur.
So I think it might be Soul. Is it Soul Calibur in the US as well?
Yeah, it is Soul Calibur in the US.
Where is it Soul Edge?
I used to play the crap out of that game in the arcades and on the Dreamcast.
Oh, Dreamcast. Yeah, boy. I had the first one on the PS1. That was some fun times.
Yeah.
Thumbs were blistered. I'm excited, actually. I haven't... when was the last time you played the Soul Calibur game?
A very, very long time. It's been a very long time since I played a Soul Calibur game.
I actually saw a lot of people on the sub asking what kind of fighting game it was. I guess it's been that long. For anyone who doesn't know, Soul Calibur is basically Tekken, but with weapons. So, swords, nunchucks, shields.
They've also got a lot of jiggle physics in that game.
Very jiggly.
Jiggle physics.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What?
It's not as good as Dead or Alive, but it's close.
There's a lot of, interesting armor options for those characters.
Like, the women have lots of plot development. Plenty of backstory as well.
I'm actually very interested in playing it, though. I absolutely loved those games. I'm like, let's get away from that real quick.
Yeah, let's be careful. This is a family-friendly podcast. Yeah, it should be fun. It looks good, too. And also, the Xbox managed to win a few awards. Forza took home Best Sports Game / Racing Game. No idea what they combined the two, but it picked that up. And that's, again, it's won every single year. I'm actually just now writing the Game of the Year awards for the Xbox One subreddit, which actually may or may not be up by the time this podcast goes out, depending on our schedule. And I have no idea why I even include the racing segment anymore, because Forza wins by thousands of votes.
Every time.
Every time. It's just the best. There's no argument. It's just the premier racing series on any console. There's nothing better. It's a fact. But then, of course, Cuphead was nominated for a grand total of 5 different game awards, and it managed to win 2. It won Best Art Direction and Best Indie Debut, or Best Debut Indie Game, which I think is a bit of a weird award. But anyway, it won those 2. And the president or prime minister, is he a president or prime minister in Canada? Does Canada have a president or a prime minister?
No, it's prime minister, I think.
Well, either way,
definitely not president.
The head honcho of the Canadians,
the handsome gentleman,
Justin Trudeau, he's a very handsome man, congratulated the team, which is actually pretty cool. I don't think a head of state has ever been like, nice video game there, boys, because they're a Canadian team. So nice one, Cuphead devs. Very nice. I suspect you will also pick up 1 or 2 of the awards on our subreddit as well, if I had to guess. And also, finally, PUBG won Best Multiplayer Game. But for some reason, they didn't hand that award out. Like, they totally forgot that category. They just skipped right over it.
Oh. I actually didn't realise that.
Maybe they ran out of time or something. It was just like, oh yeah, and PUBG won Best Multiplayer.
Doesn't surprise me that it would, to be fair, though. It's incredibly popular.
Yes, and of course, the overall game of the year, we all decided it was either going to be Mario or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. If you haven't played that game, do it. You owe it to yourself.
Have you picked up is the new DLC out for that game?
Yeah,
it dropped
instantly.
Like, instantly. Like, they announced it at the Game Awards, and they're like, oh, by the way, you can play it right now. Like, it just
I just saw on the Twitters, a GIF or something, a clip of Link, and it was like, forget horses, and it was him on a motorcycle.
Oh, I've seen that.
Like a burnout.
They give him a,
oh my gosh!
Gives you a motorbike.
Oh my gosh, that looks amazing. Amazing.
I can't wait. Cause, okay, so anyone who hasn't played this game, the map is big. Like.
Very big.
Like World of Warcraft big. Like, you know when you play Skyrim, the map is big, but you wander for a couple seconds and then you bump into something. Well, Breath of the Wild is actually post-apocalyptic, and much of the world is fairly empty. I know that might sound boring, but it's not. It really adds to the atmosphere and the scale of it all. So being able to tear ass around on a motorbike, it's like, it's the best thing ever, frankly. Riding up mountains and doing jumps and stuff like that. I can't wait. I bet there's going to be some epic gifs of like dudes doing a big jump off of a hill and then backflipping off the bike, landing on their shield and like surfing down the hill and shooting some guys with arrows as they do it or something like that. It's going to be some Legolas type stuff.
Legolas?
And yeah. So that was the Game Awards.
I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you what I did. I did not watch the Game Awards, by the way.
Okay, well,
I refuse to watch. No, I'm just joking. I don't. I just forgot it was
strange.
I know.
Strange hill to die on, friend. But
yes, yeah, no.
I was gonna say, was it not on like stupid times for you guys, like early hours in the morning?
It's like 3 or 4 a.m. for me, so I watched it in the morning when I woke up.
It's good time for me. I think it's on. It's out on the West Coast, stateside. I think it starts at like 6 or 7, so that's like 10 or 11 Eastern time. So, which is prime time for me to be watching it, but I think I completely forgot that it was on.
So, guys, what has been your game of the year this year? Can you say yet, or do you need some time to think about it? Should we ask now and then answer next week, maybe?
Yeah, let's answer that next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think I've got
that's not written down or anything. I just sprung that on them. Their reaction is genuine. I think next week we should definitely mention our game of the year. And you know what? I'll make it easy for you. You can write the top 3.
No, I've got one.
You got one already? Oh shit, that was quick.
I don't
think I have one. Does it have to be Xbox?
Yeah, mine unfortunately isn't Xbox.
It doesn't.
For
play, I think it's gonna be Mario, right?
Man, Mario was so good. Mario was so good.
See, I haven't played Mario. It's sitting in a box in my room because it's my sister's Christmas present. I have to watch her play it, and I'm not allowed to touch it.
Oh, ew.
I know.
Well, one cool thing on the Game Awards is that the game features a really iconic song, and everyone's probably already heard it by now. And they had the Game Awards opera, and they were playing like different songs from different games. And then when the Mario's part came on, they started playing the iconic song, and they actually got the singer to come out and actually start singing the
that was really
Odyssey
nice
theme song. It was really cool. I was really impressed with that.
Do you see everyone with the hats? The Kathy hats?
Yeah, everyone had the stupid hats.
I was like,
I got a key ring with my copy of the game.
I've got a hat.
You have a hat?
I have the hat. Yeah.
Why don't you wear it on stream?
Because it's technically my sister's, but I took it anyway. But no, if you in the UK, if you pre-ordered my Odyssey, and also for quick advertisement, if anyone's near a game store, please go in. Some stores have samples left. Samples? Do you even call them that? But yeah, no, because my sister got the Odyssey, she's got the Odyssey Switch. We got a free hat, so I actually have a Cappy hat. I did take a photo, I think it was a photo on Twitter of me wearing one, which I wore during my work shift, but no, I actually technically now own one. They're so cool. They fit snow.
You need to stream with that bad boy on.
I know.
It's me.
Carina. It's me, offensive Italian stereotype.
Oh, the fake mustache.
By the way,
I need to get a fake mustache.
Did you guys? My 6-year-old son was quizzing me on Mario. By the way, did you guys know what Mario's last name is?
Oh,
Mario.
It's Mario.
Yeah,
who names their character Mario?
And his brother's Luigi Mario.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why they're called the Mario Bros.
Yeah,
because they are actually
Mario. Yeah, it makes sense now, but I was like, what? Did you really name the guy Mario?
See, this is actually an in-joke that goes all the way back to the 1993 or 1994 live-action film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I tried watching that one.
AKA the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah, I never watched that. Thank you.
Yeah, you probably don't want to.
Dude. Okay, imagine, well, basically they take Mario...
I know it.
And they put it into a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk universe where people listen to rock set and dance and their heads spin around while they do that.
actually sounds
Do you need some time to process that?
that's
Clay's
amazing.
like, what?
He's like,
what is going on?
Mario, cyberpunk, post-apocalyptic, futuristic. What? Seriously, it's the best movie ever made. Anyone who says otherwise, I'm going to ban from Reddit.
I've just realised if we stream PUBG, we need a frying pan.
We do. I have plenty.
Why is there not a frying pan hat? It should come with a frying pan hat.
Microsoft sent Jez from Windows Central a fry pan.
Oh, the PUBG boxes. I've seen a few people get them. They look pretty cool. You do. You know what? Please send me one because I don't own a frying pan right now. I could actually do with a frying pan.
So do you know what I'm 3D printing right now? Is
a frying pan?
The stupidest thing I've ever 3D printed. It is a frying pan.
Yes.
Amazing, I can't wait. So, for those who don't know, the frying pan is a bit of an icon in PUBG, and I've actually looked into this story because it's a stupid melee weapon you can pick up, but when you hit someone, it goes bong. But not just that, there was a glitch in the early programming. They figured out that basically the fry pan deflects bullets.
Oh, have you seen the video?
It's bulletproof. It actually, it's not just bulletproof, but it deflects bullets. They bounce off of it. And they actually left it in because it's so amazing. And so when you've got the fry pan in your inventory, you have it on your back. And you can actually, if you go to YouTube and search like best of pan compilation, you will see some amazing saves of people just like walking along and then and a bullet just bounces off the pan and saves their life.
Accidentally got it out at the right time.
And I have seen a guy in a video, like some guy's got a shotgun and he's shooting at this dude backpedaling who's got a pan and he's running at him, and the dude with the pan is basically Darth Vader in this dude and swatting the shotgun pellets out of the air like a lightsaber, just like just swinging the pan back and forth and just swatting the pellets out of the way before he closed the distance and killed him with it. It's the greatest weapon in gaming. You know, I think we've basically rambled on long enough. We still need some time in this episode to squeeze in the interview. But before I cut us away, I want to quickly point out the dude, it was posted by The Hardest R. And this is a guy who was caught on camera saving his Xbox from the wildfires in like the most dramatic picture ever. He was caught on camera by the local news. Did you guys see that?
I did.
Yeah.
It's such an epic picture. He's like running away from this huge wall of flame. His house is on fire. There's firefighters everywhere. And he's got like, not a balaclava, but like a cloth tied around a bandana. Thank you. Bandana tied around his mouth. And he's like, he's just running away, like full on action shot. And he's got this Xbox cradled in his arm. Sticker on the Xbox and everything, just bolting from the fire. Like, you'd expect him to be carrying his child.
Priorities. See, they're the correct priorities.
And it's just such an epic shot. And yeah, someone posted that on the subreddit. And actually, Major Nelson caught the thread and reached out to the guy. So I presume they sent him some cool stuff. I think that's just really funny. It's such a great picture. Everyone should look that up. But, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this really weird and unusual episode, but it's getting close to Christmas, so, all bets are off, and Ross is stuck at work, so what's he going to do about it? And, yeah, so I'm just going to basically end the podcast here, and we're going to spend the rest of the podcast listening to this pre-recorded interview with the guys from Frictional Games, who are best known for the Amnesia series, and they just released SOMA on the Xbox One. So take it away, Xbox voiceover lady.
Xbox Snap this week's interview.
Now, please note this interview may contain some spoilers about the game, so if you haven't been lucky enough to play SOMA, then you may want to listen to it after.
All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's interview. Today we have, as promised, a super cool guest. We have Thomas Grip, who is the creative director and co-founder of Frictional Games. Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's fantastic to have you on here. I am fangirling like mad. You can't see me, but I am I'm literally shaking because you guys have been I'm a huge fan of Frictional Games, and I'm so glad that you finally made the switch to Xbox. And you guys just released SOMA on the Xbox One.
Yes, that's true. That's highlight.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. But first, why don't we start off by telling us a little bit about who you are and what exactly it is that you do at Frictional Games.
Wow, that's a hard question. No, but yes, I'm, as you said, creator director and co-founder of Frictional Games. What that means is I do a lot of stuff. So we're still a small studio, so it's really hard counting how many we are, but somewhere like 15 to 20, depending on who we count as being in the studio. So you get to wear a lot of hats and so forth. So I mainly do designing, a lot of running the company, like product management and so on, and also quite a bit of programming, depending on, what hell we're doing currently. So I think that's my main things. And I've been part of the company since the start, obviously, since I was part of founding it. So worked on all our games. Not sure there's much to add without getting it very in-depth.
Now, can you tell us a little... Oh, by the way, Ross is here as well. I'm not on the rest of the episode. I've just
hi, Ross.
I've just popped up for this interview.
That.
But can you tell us a little bit about the history of Frictional? What made you personally want to start up a gaming company?
Oh, yeah. So I've been interested in making my own games for a long, long time, since the late 90s something. And so I'm making my own games, and sort of fell into making horror games. I made it at the turn of the century. Is that the correct phrase? So some I released it sometimes in 2001 or something, and it was a sort of a homage to Lovecraft. And then after that, I started a new horror game because this felt like an interesting genre to work in. And then I came to meet with Jens, who I then later co-founded Frictional with, and we were like, he had made games on his own. He was more of a sound guy. So he's helped out other people making sounds for their games. And so we started the company at some point in 2006, and officially was formed and registered at the state and so forth in 2007. But 2006 we started the company based on a tech demo that we had made, which we just released for free, but it got something like 1 million downloads, which in 2005 or something like that was quite a bit. Because we were like, shit, we should try and make money out of this. But like, until that point, it's sort of weird, like looking back at how the indie scene, or it wasn't really called the indie scene back then, but how you thought about things. And when I released my first horror game, there was some guy mailed me who said, well, you should really try and sell this. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I can't sell my stuff. So now it feels like, everyone should sell their indie games. There's a whole, because of Steam and whatnot, there's a whole different, view on how you can make a living and so on. But I really didn't think I was going to be able to make my own game company when I started out making my own games. But then it sort of just happened. We started a company, and I sort of continued doing what I've been doing since I was like 17, just sitting at my desk coding games. But now I get money from it somehow. It's all very bizarre, to be honest. It doesn't really feel like it doesn't feel like I've ever held a proper job. I was a dishwasher for 3 months, but that's sort of it. Other than that, I've just been playing around for now 10 years or so. It's very weird.
So you have dishwasher on your like LinkedIn profile and nothing else?
Yeah, so that's if I send out my CV, that's the only proper job, like everyone mentioned. No, it's weird. No, for the longest time, I know, like, who's now my mother-in-law's like, oh, shouldn't you, like, we have some other jobs for you, and so you could deliver newspapers and stuff like that. So it's like but now it's like we're doing a good earning and so on this, but for the longest time it didn't feel like, even when we started the company, like this was going to be something I could make for a living and I could just hang on to it for as long as I could. But now it's like turned into a big business with many people employed and so on. And again, like it's hard to, like, when I think about it, the more I think about it, the more weird it just feels to be able to work like that. And especially because an interesting point is that up until very recently, this summer to be exact, we didn't have an office at Frictional. I'm still not working at the office because the office is in another town. It's like a hour train ride away from here, but everyone's been working from home and so forth. So I've never like left home. That is like I've obviously lived in different places and so forth, but you're still sitting at home working, which makes that feel of not doing a proper job even more so. And it was sort of weird when we released Amnesia, the whole team had not met. We met like a half a year afterwards or something like that. No, yeah, we only conversed over Skype and whatnot. So yeah, the reaction is pretty common. How do you do that? And I'm like, you don't have to sit around people and talk about other things and so on. You get very focused on just doing work. Obviously, like socially, it can be a bit demanding, but you sort of get into it after a bit. I've been doing it now for 10 years, so it doesn't feel like it feels weird to me going to an office. Just being around other people who are talking and like not sitting in silence and being able to play music and whatnot, as I like. That's really weird. Like wearing pants. Like, is that a thing you do out in real world? Like, it sounds. Yeah.
It's so Nordic. I can feel it. Like, yes, people. I hate them. You're living the Nordic dream, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember. I'm not sure if Finland or Sweden is worse, but I think it's about the same. I remember seeing a picture from on Reddit or somewhere on the Finnish bus line, people were evenly spaced by 1 meter or so.
Yes.
And, it's the same with Sweden. It's like, you're really careful about where you're going to sit. And it's very fun. But I'm guessing Britain is not that far away from that.
Just to interject here, you were saying we're in the same situation that, Rhys and I have been doing this podcast a while, and we've never actually met, so it's a bit similar. But unlike yous, we don't make games, we just make podcasts. But usually when our listeners listen to this podcast, they wish they had a bit of amnesia. So it's probably quite similar.
Yeah.
all that for that one joke. There you go.
Yeah, all that tiny joke. But that was actually one of the most interesting answers we've ever had to that question, I have to say, because that's a really unique story about how you started and how you guys work completely remote. That's actually really cool. So that was really interesting. But let's swing back on topic here because we went off on quite a tangent there. You just released your latest game, SOMA. It's not new. It's been out for 2 years now?
Yeah,
on the PC and PS4. Now. But it's finally made its way to the Xbox, and everyone is excited. So for those who are unfamiliar with SOMA, can you just briefly describe the game for us in your own words?
Yeah, so it's an underwater sci-fi adventure with horror elements. That's something about it. It's a bit of it's hard to explain, I guess, more if you want to get more into it, but basically it's a lot about experience a certain story, and then you're in a very horrible environment as you're doing this. And one of the reasons why we created the game was that there was a lot of these interesting philosophical topics that we wanted to discuss, and we felt that the game was a very interesting way of letting, instead of just reading about some very abstract thought experiments, you could be inside that thought experiment. And that was something that sort of drove the whole development. So we talk about things of identity and consciousness and that sort of thing. And all that happens in this underwater world where there's weird creatures roaming about. I think that sums the game up. I hope so.
Yeah, pretty good summary for me. Yeah. Now, was it particularly difficult to bring the gameplay you invented in the old-timey Lovecraftian setting of Amnesia into a gritty sci-fi future like SOMA?
Yeah, so we're sort of, I'm guessing a bit like, we're sort of was constrained by our pedigree or legacy to a certain degree, where I think that we have like so two things on it. So one is that we know how to make a specific line of games, and I don't want to stray too far from that. Like we're already like as you say, we're now doing a sci-fi environment, which has all sort of the new things just working in that environment, even if we had exactly the same gameplay. And so we don't want to change that sort of basic formula too much. And then on top of that, we also have like a pretty big fan base who's like expecting horror from us. So we sort of tried and make sure we can have that, but still have the sort of philosophical things in it. And I think the horror is in SOMA, so like in Amnesia, the horror is like center stage. You play the game to have these sort of horrific encounters. That's the sort of reason for playing it. Whereas in SOMA, the horror is more of building a tone that helps you get into these sort of philosophical things and like experiencing the sci-fi narrative to it all. So that's the sort of thing that we were trying, the differences between the two. And then that has been a lot of like I know. So for instance, now we're releasing on Xbox with a safe mode that we haven't had before, where you can make the monsters non-lethal. So they're still going to be spooky and so on, but they're not going to kill you, because there's been a lot of people who didn't like that aspect of it. Some people loved that aspect of the game, while others were like, "Oh, I just wanna, experience the story and so forth." So we now 2 years after we added a mode so that people pick what sort of experience they wanted. But just as a side note, also you say what difficulties, and these are very gameplay wise difficulties in terms of Monsters Zone. But one difficulty was the setting, and I didn't actually, going into it, I felt like, wow, one of the annoyances with Amnesia was that you constantly have to look for references, like how does this sort of Gothic castle look, and what sort of chairs are you going to look? So I was really into chairs, for, antique chairs for a bit there. And so now, like sci-fi, wow, we can do whatever we please. It's going to get so much easier. And it was so much harder because you don't have references. So you have to go like in an indirect fashion in figuring out all of these references. And one of the typical examples I usually bring up is that one artist made all of the walls with bolts, and the other artist didn't make any walls. So like they has weld together metal pieces. So that's how he considered the sci-fi environment. And the other guy was, well, they're gonna bolt it together. So we just had to make a decision, and this was like half an hour a year into the game or something like that. We were like, shit, we're not consistent in this style. And whereas, it's just a small thing like the damn bolts, but it was a huge issue in just fixing this, because it's like tons of assets that had these differences. And when Amnesia, you didn't have those problems, because we could basically go and visit these sort of environments, and like the artists can look at them and so on, and we can have very easy to find reference photos. But if you have like a futuristic underwater research facility, you're not going to find. There is one, but it definitely doesn't look anything like the one that we have in game. So finding references was really, really hard. So that actually was a really big challenge, much, much bigger than I anticipated going into it all.
That's crazy. I'm going to be checking games texturing for bolts now. It's into my mind like, wait a minute. I'll be writing a review in the future, and like game does not feature accurate representation of bolts, 6 out of 10. But you actually answered one of our follow-up questions, which was about safe mode, because it's such a different kind of thing. So I'm going to skip right over that and say that, speaking of, Lovecraft, because you mentioned him and Ross mentioned him, your stories are, very clearly influenced by his work. But are there any particular like sci-fi novels, movies, or games that inspired your sort of sci-fi angle with SOMA?
Wow, there's tons. So I'm going to try and be brief here, because I could talk about sci-fi influence a lot. So in terms of so there's mostly, I think, in terms of the philosophical themes and so on, there's books, and both non-fiction and fiction. One of my Philip K. Dick, obviously, is a big inspiration of one of the more known authors, but there's also authors like Peter Watts and Greg Agans. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those guys, but they write really hardcore science sci-fi. And the thing with their writing is that they're very, like some sci-fi, like say Star Wars, they're not so much into thinking about what's actually happening. They're more like using the environment to tell an exciting story, whereas they're used their environments to like probe human nature and like what does it mean if we had this technology? What would it really mean? So we're very inspired by trying to have the same approach for SOMA, where we like really thought about like if this was for real, what would be the effects of it. And then there's also, as I mentioned earlier, about philosophical and thought experiments, and there's a ton of literature on that's been extremely inspirational. And so, for instance, there's an author called Daniel Dennett, a philosopher, who's written a lot of these sort of fun thought experiments that give rise to some of the stuff in the game. There's one instance where you have to decide whether you want to murder a small robot. It's actually directly taken from an example of his. This is pretty fun. That was actually our design document just featured a link to that article, or actually just
screw you for that point, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked really well. So that was the sort of inspirational sources that we had, so tons of them thrown in. Another sort of big inspirational point has been an author called China Melville, British author, and thing, he doesn't really write sci-fi. He writes weird fantasy or weird fiction, I think is this sort of name you use for it. But his worlds are extremely consistent. So that was something we wanted to bring to the mix as well. With having worlds that are not just simply there, but, you know, again, as I said, if we have something we think about, well, how would this influence? Like, they're all underwater. How would that influence this and that, and so on? Like there's an example from one of Melville's stories, Pettigrew Street Station, which is his breakthrough novel. He has a character that's dating a girl who has a beetle for a face, like just a big cockroach instead of a face. And then he just, you know, he takes that at face value and you know, how their relationship would be given this. And so stuff like that is really, I'm finding that really inspiring. Like, you can take something that's so out there and so bizarre, but then you do it in a way that, you know, you really get into the world, and like you can really, it feels realistic in some sense, that, you know, he just considers all of the consequences and just falls with it. And that's something that's been very inspirational as well. Then in terms of movie inspiration, there's tons, like The Abyss, just for setting and so on. There's also these sort of small inspirational note that might be worth noting, where you can use the source to just make sure something works. So, for instance, we started out with SOMA with all of the characters having flippers. Because if you're underwater, you're going to be swimming around. But the problem is, we don't want the player swimming around, because that's so... It's sort of annoying to control. Like, no one likes underwater levels in games. And it also means that if this player then is walking, if the other characters are swimming about, that's going to feel weird. And then the player's going to be hard to reach places and so on. So, like, can't people just be walking around? And then in Sphere, there's this moment where they walk to their base or to a sub or something like that. And like, wow, this doesn't look like totally bad. We can actually have walking. So that was like, we could just use a movie just to get a sense of, you know, if they get away with it. If I've seen this movie, and we're all seeing this movie, and we all can agree that no one like was thinking, why are they walking at the bottom of the ocean? That's not going to work. If they could get away with it, we're going to be able to get away with it as well. So that was another sort of inspirational source to use.
Nice. So can you tell us a little bit about your monster design? Like, who on the team dreams up this messed up stuff. Who hurt them as children? And
it's a very much a collaborative approach in many ways. But we have a concept artist that's obviously had bad childhoods or whatnot. Been hit on the head too many times. No, sorry, but yes. So you obviously have someone just saying, thinking of some designs, but a lot of the case, it's connected with what I said before, that you just take something and roll with it. So it's like, there's gonna be, we have this sort of base-wide AI thing. It's not really like an AI that in most games, but this is a bit special, I think, but it's called the WOW. It's like the warden unit who takes care of the station, and when everything goes to hell, he goes sort of rogue, but in a sort of, it's an inspirational source from other philosophical papers, actually, and it's a thought experiment called the paperclip maximizer, which is that, say you have an AI that's just it just builds paper clips, and you think that it's gonna be the most harmless thing ever. But if that becomes too intelligent, the paperclip maximizer is just gonna turn every human into paper clips, because obviously it considers paper clips the optimal form of any matter. So you can have something that just sounds harmless, but then turns really harmful if it's giving enough power. And same thing here with the warden unit, is that it tries to, it sees that people are dying, so it's like, I gotta fix them. And then it just turns them into these sort of horrible creatures that are alive and in constant pain, but that's not really, the framework that you're working with. As long as there's a pulse, it's gonna be happy about what it's achieved. So that's the sort of thing that also influences a lot of these designs, where you think about, how would this go about fixing it, and so forth. So that's a lot of how that came about. And then there's also, again, just thinking about how to make spooky things, and a lot of it is just we people tend to feel unnerved when something feels, it's something that we encounter in daily life, like a face, but something is off, like an eye is in the wrong place or something like that, and then we find that a bit unnerving and so on. So you try and hit those sort of things when designing things. But yes, as I said, so you have all of that goes into the creature designs. I don't think this obviously sometimes someone just gets a really crazy idea, like a disturbing idea that turns really frightening. But I think most of the time you work from, it sounds sort of very scientific and boring, but you work from basic principles and just, go from there to the final results. But more often than not, that's what actually brings the best results about.
Yeah, like one of your trademark moments, I suppose, is not being able to look at the monsters directly. But what I really want to know is what goes into designing a scary moment, and how do you really test it when you know already what's going to happen?
Yes, it's really hard. So there's two things to it, I think. So one is that so obviously it's not an exact science. It's not as exact that I want it to be. We'll try and do our best. So again, I think the sort of first principles that I used is not bad to have. In that so you know the basic ingredients of making a scary story, and then you try and achieve those. So that's your sort of basic route that you can let's use that as a framework, where you know that it seems like we're not getting this and that, and then you can sort of try and boost those aspects of your scene. Then it usually starts as an idea where you're like, wow, this would actually be frightening. And that idea might pop up from seeing something in a movie, from just, being out in the dark and if a monster popped up at this very moment, I would possibly shit my pants. And so you can use that as something where you're like, okay, then let's try and recreate that in the game. So that's where you build upon. So you have that sort of idea that you try and form into a workable interactive situation. Then once you have that interactive situation, you must obviously test it. And one way is to test it on on people who haven't played the game and like see their reactions. The problem with doing this is that you lose, you can see if it works or not, but it can be very hard to get feedback, and you lose a certain personal sense and feel to it. I think it's very important that you can sense in a very like hands-on manner like what it's like in the scene. If you're entirely like unemotional towards whatever happens there, it's going to be very hard to tweak things because you might not like intuitively sense where the error lies. So what you need to do is to play your own stuff and make sure that you can get scared by it, even though you know what will happen. The way that I usually do this is by just playing a game where I'm tired, but not too tired. So my brain is starting to sort of close down. And then you can usually get into a good sort of state there where you're not so tired, so you just get anything, but your sort of basic functions of being able to tell reality from fantasy are slowly, starting to not work, and you can use that moment in order to feel the scene a bit. So that's one way of doing it, and then also having people test one other scene, and then because all know what you're trying to achieve, get a better sense from that. But I think that's the techniques that we use to try and build something scary.
That's highly scientific sounding,
Yeah, it sounds more scientific.
Think about what would make you shit your pants, get really tired, and then try it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. But, so another one, we're talking about, that you guys have a lot of, sort of horror trademarks. And another one that all of your games have had, your famous games have had anyway, is that you have no way of fighting back. It's like sort of the core concept of the game. It's that you are a passive observer. You can't fight these things. What I want to know is at what point did this enter into your design philosophy? Like, did you start off having weapons and then being like, this sucks and pull them? Or did you build the entire game from the start with the concept that you couldn't fight back?
Yeah, so we actually started with the sucks part. So, what we did in our first game, our first visual game, was that we thought of, okay, so we should have weapons, but we want to make sure that the weapons are a bit weak and hard to use, because we wanted them to be used as a last resort. Like if you in a horror movie, the protagonist, final girl or whatnot, he pulls up a plank and hits whoever the antagonist is on the head, and then they're get a bit dizzy and they can escape. But what you don't do is take the plant and beat them to death or something like that. So we wanted to have that sort of aspect of horror movies into our games, and then it felt like, well, weapons actually is a very cool thing to have. So we added, really awesome weapons into the number, like a hammer and a broom, and players. But the thing is that players are primed to think of weapons in a specific way. So we found that players, upon getting a weapon, even if it's just this small hammer and they're going up against a dynamic dog, demonic dog, they're gonna use the hammer and try to beat that dog. And often they're gonna find these weird glitches in the game in order to do that, like sitting at a certain place in the level allows them to be out of reach but still be in reach in order to hit the dog. So we found a lot of players who were abusing the system and not really using it as we should. So we thought that, so our first reasoning was to think that, well, we could possibly just change how we do the weapons and tweak them. But it just felt like, depending on who is playing, what the right level of tweaking is highly variable. So we just tried it internally, and we had some more hardcore gamer, and he needed it really hard, whereas we had the other person who wasn't that into playing, that much of a hardcore gamer. And for him, it was too hard, and he was never going to be able to use the weapons at all. So then our decision was, what if we just removed them? How would that change? And it turns out it changed everything, from just how the player reacts in the environment and how they really experience the game as a whole. Because when you have weapons and when you have combat, a large part of the player's attention is going to be at, how am I going to hit the next monster that pops out? What weapon am I going to pick? And they're going to be very obsessed by those things. And because of that, they're not going to notice like the smaller things. But when we removed weapons, players started picking up on very, quiet sounds, like they hear some footsteps in the distance and so forth. And suddenly, like, that became a huge part of the game. And they're like, oh, I hear some steps. Even if that's just a stupid sound effect player. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm not sure I should move on from here and so on. And that was something that we really didn't find when people had weapons, so which was a big game changer for us. But even so, and it worked well, so we did this for our follow-up game for Penumbra called Penumbra Black Plague. And then when we were going to do Amnesia, we're like, well, weapons are still fun. The thing is that when you don't have weapons, it's also a very good design framework because you're forced to think up situations, that are interesting, because not having weapons is not intrinsically interesting. You need to build up scenarios that make it interesting for a player. Whereas if you have weapons, you can just, we have a maze and we have a monster patrolling the maze. Then we have gameplay like design done, let's move on. And we actually did that a lot for our first Penumbra game. But it's so enticing to have this this opportunity to just throw combat in there. So you're like, perhaps we should have combat after all. So we actually went and tried it again for Amnesia, but then we're like, no, let's just drop it. And then we get back to the sort of non-weaponless, and we tried to keep it since. But yeah, so it's been a long process for us in dropping it. It wasn't like we didn't just come up with the idea out of the blue, but it was something that grew over a longer time period.
Nice.
Now, it could be said that you guys are pretty responsible for reinvigorating the horror genre this generation. Arguably, if it wasn't for titles like Amnesia, we wouldn't have got games like Alien Isolation. That's a good one. If you played Alien Isolation, would you like to see that kind of dynamic AI in Frictional Games, for example?
Yeah. So obviously, it's very fun to hearing. I'm not sure how much. On some days it feels like we were very responsible, so on others not. It depends on egoistic I'm feeling at the moment, narcissistic I am at the moment. But No, it's very fun that people think so, and it's fun to see. I hope, at least, I'm not sure to what degree, but it feels very. Feel very honored and humbled that game like Alien Isolation can be, at least you're a part of causing it, because I think it's although there's aspects of it that I didn't like, there's other, as like I just like it existing, and then there's a lot of really amazing bits in that game. And but yeah, so when it comes to more dynamic AI and so on, yeah. Yes. I would really like to see it. But what I would more like to see is that we move on from the player just simply being chased and hiding and trying to distract monsters. Because it just feels like it felt a bit interesting doing it for Amnesia, but now there's been so many games doing it that it's no longer feels as interesting. I remember, for instance, playing a few months back, playing the latest Outlast. And I'm just like, this is really cool stuff in that game, but I'm just, I'm bored out of my skull doing this. I want to do something else. It's so passive. I want to be an active participant in a horror game. So we're like, right now, a big focus in the studio is trying to get back an active ingredient. And I think that doing AI that's interesting is a big part of that. And that's like one solution that we're pursuing. We're doing actually two projects at this time. And one of them is we're working a lot on just having more dynamic and interesting AI that works in the world in interesting ways as part of coming up with that solution. And then for the other game, we're trying some other approaches and see how that can work.
Just to interject here, so in your mind, is that why the latest Resident Evil was well received, because it had similar elements like that, but it progressed them on a little bit?
Yes, so this is sort of like a deeper discussion, but I think that what makes a game interesting for a player is very much how much they can plan and execute those plans on, and a SOMA game has tons of these, but all on lower timescales, whereas a game like Civilization has it on like very much grander timescales, and the timescales are not so important as is that you actually do this sort of loop of planning and executing plans. And one thing that I would like to add to our games is that sort of sense. And yes, Resident Evil 7 very much have that sense. And they're sort of cheating a bit. And sort of, you call that by having like an inventory system. So you're constantly managing.
My Roomba just turned on. This is awkward.
It's a robot uprising. It is sort of fitting. Yeah.
It's quite fitting, yeah.
Yeah. It's trying to disrupt the whole thing. But very shortly on Resident Evil.
Professional podcasting.
Yeah. They're using the inventory management and so on a lot to their advantage, and I think it's a good thing because you're constantly thinking about, okay, what items should I equip? And you want to enter, like you get these sort of really good risk and reward scenarios where you like, I really want to search this room again, but also there might be a monster there, so I'm gonna not search this possibly. So there's a lot of that going on, and even though that sort of feels like gameplay, even though you're not. It's not active like in a Mario game.
Yeah,
and I think that's missing from again, don't want to get too harsh on Outlast, but I think they're doing a lot of cool stuff. But I think that there's like where you just simply progress through hiding and so on, and you're not really in control of where you want to go and why you want to go there. You're basically just following along on a path that the game's designers set out for you. So I think that's a big thing that the Resident Evil gets away with that. And there's no one's going to call Resident Evil a walking simulator or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I'm very fascinated by that sort of difference because we got that reply a lot for SOMA, whereas we didn't get anyone calling Misha a walking simulator at all.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I mean, a lot of what you said actually just sort of rings true. This isn't scripted, by the way. I'm just flying this off the cuff. But like when you say that people balance risk and reward with inventory management, Dead Space is one of my favorite series because I love sci-fi and I love horror, which is coincidentally why I like SOMA so much. And I would always say, I even said out loud at one point, like, my greed is greater than my fear. Like, I need to look into this room to find the loots. And, also what you said about, I was thinking hard about how you said that it feels a bit like it's, just hiding from the enemies can sort of be not so good anymore, like in Outlast. And I was actually thinking more of a really great game whose developer we actually had on here for an interview at one point, which is Observer. Have you played that?
Yeah, I played it.
Yeah, and it's very much like SOMA, but more cyberpunk, I suppose. And I thought that the weakest parts of that game were when you had to actually hide.
Yeah,
I was so much more enjoying the exploring and talking to the citizens, the new stuff, I suppose.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to the parts where I hide. I'm actually going to try.
Oh, really?
As I get to those parts. No, I'm hopelessly bad at playing longer sessions of games. I develop first-person games for a living, but I still get nauseous from certain first-person games, and unfortunately, Observer is one of those games. So I have to play it in small chunks in order.
So
to
no VR for you.
Busy. No VR for me. I tried some horror game in VR, and I had a headache like 24 hours later or something.
Wow.
It's just not good. I'm not a good person for that. But it's weird that you can sort of not develop games and not get into that. I'm not sure what the difference is. But never mind. Yeah. I think that's sort of hiding and so on is getting away, and I also really enjoyed sort of talking to the various inhabitants and the apartment building and Observer. That's really cool, and I don't think I would enjoy as much as like monster encounter.
Yeah, it's not the strongest part of the game, I suppose, but Basically, I'll bring us on to the second last question. Ross has a very, very important question for you, which is always the final question. So you have to sort of prepare yourself in advance for that one. But I'll basically lose my voice halfway through a sentence. And then I just want to know what's next for Frictional, because you mentioned you're working on 2 separate titles. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're working on. Let's see how much I can say. Yes.
Yeah, I know you can't say
censoring
too much,
myself here a bit, but we're working on one which is going to be horrific in nature, and that project is in production right now. And then we have another in pre-production where we're going to go a bit more narrative focused. And I think that's all I can say at this point. But yeah, we have 2. So it's a big new thing for the studio, but I think it's an important thing for us to, in order to grow a large part of, like, just keeping people, like when we started SOMA, the artist has nothing to do, and we only knew it was going to be underwater. So for half a year, they only modeled fish, which is not the best use of the time, because that's something that's easily outsourced. We just got a lot of fish for the game. It ended up being good for the game, but still, I would like to make sure that people have a project to jump onto once one is finished, and then it's also a matter of just being able to take more risks and so on. So if project bumps, we don't have reboot and start to get really, really cautious about things, but we have, another one in the pipeline that can generate income as well. So I think it's going to be very important for us in order to keep stable over the coming years. So yeah, that's what we're up to.
Now, the question that all the listeners, and I'm assuming that you have been waiting for. It's probably the hardest question you'll ever be asked. I know it's the hardest question I ever have to ask someone. But which classic video game character could you knock out with one punch?
Oh wow! I'm not. So I haven't tried punching it. I'm not so aware of them. I'm sort of thinking my punching power here. What was classical
Use your interpretation of the question, so.
Yeah, I'm probably overthinking this way too much, as you might have noticed from me. I'm starting
just listen to your heart, Thomas.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's possibly some skeleton character or something like that, at least. Don't you have I'm thinking, why am I thinking, are there any skeletons in Ghosts and Goblins? That's the only thing that sort of pops up in my mind. I'm not sure why Ghosts and Goblins is in my mind. Well, I'm possibly one of the starter characters, the starter enemies from there. But what else is there to punch in game? I could probably sister, I was thinking, sorry, but I'm totally derailing on this question, but I was thinking that Joshi is probably pretty punchable, but then I'm thinking he's possibly have a pretty thick skull as well, because then, he doesn't have people's brainy of characters, so I would probably just hurt my hand. I'm trying to knock that out, but because I thought it was soft, but then I'm thinking that actually in actual anatomy, it might actually be not.
I can safely say you're the first person ever to discuss the cranial anatomy of Yoshi on this podcast.
I got a bit hung up on that aspect of it. Now I'm just thinking of what else. Like to be honest, like most video game characters are actually not very fragile. They can actually, really get,
Who do you hate?
Who do you hate? Yeah, who would you like? Who
I would like to find. That depends on, but fuck, say, Donkey Kong, and this is something of earlier games, in the arcade version at least. Like, fuck that guy. Really lots of hateful moments in that. I'm possibly, one of my all-time most hated. I'm not sure if you ever played Lost Ninja on C64.
I did.
Yeah, there is one moment and that where you have to jump on a boat in order to get over a river. And as a kid, I was like 7 or something. You know, this first time in life where I really cried. You know, like really, really felt horrible. Like I could really punch that boat because fuck that boat. That
the
really,
jumping was so hard because of the isometric viewpoint.
Yeah, that jump. Yeah, there's more of that. That the controls for Lost Ninja now. I'm really, but yeah, I could really punch. I could punch that ninja as well because that's gonna be he could take a lot of punch in a fist fight though. So I'm not sure I could punch him, but he dies from like falling like a meter or so, and he can't like even climb down. It's the weakest. Like
so what you're saying is you'd push him down the steps.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. You could push him down the steps. Yeah, probably that.
I always said punch him, not murder them.
Yeah.
But yeah. What I think we can take from that is that you dislike quite a lot of things, the characters in video games. We've got Donkey Kong, we've got a boat, we've got a few going on here, we've got a few things going on here.
We can get that into the list. That's great. But, Thomas, that's all the time we have for this interview. So thank you so much for joining us. You've been a fantastic guest. It's been very interesting. I learned a lot of new things. A lot of this stuff is like, these are really cool, interesting facts you shared with us. They're definitely unavailable on your Wikipedia page. So, thanks for that. And, we wish you the best of luck with SOMA on Xbox One. Anybody who is interested in picking that up, it is out on the Xbox One, and I believe it's $30. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's very correct.
$30 US. It is a fantastic single-player, story-driven experience. If you like horror games, go and pick this game up. Seriously, for the love of God, what's wrong with you? And yeah, good luck with your future work, and we hope to have you on here again sometime soon, Thomas.
Yeah. Thanks for your kind words, and thanks for having me on. It's been a great time.
No problem. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So thanks so much again to Thomas for that awesome interview. I am so excited to play this game on the Xbox One again. I've already played it on PC, and I just love it to death. But that's it for this week. But guys, I'm just recording this little extra bit here for a very special announcement that next week we have a very special Christmas episode. In fact, you might even call it a piratey Christmas. That's really lame, but basically we have a Christmas special coming up next week. We're going to be away over Christmas for 2 weeks, so this is going to be the last episode of the year, but we have a very, very special episode for you guys planned. We have Rare coming on again, and we've got the executive producer and design director and community lead from Rare's Sea of Thieves project, and it's going to be the most amazing Sea of Thieves pirate Christmas themed episode ever. So make sure you tune in next week, and until then, Xbox, turn off.
You're listening to Xbox One Party Chat Podcast, the official podcast of the Xbox One subreddit.
It's settled. Let's do this.